Peace, peace, y'all. How are you today? Gorgeous day. Got about 5-6 inches of snow. Just gonna go for a little walk in the woods. Got my awesome professional grade Stihl up and running. Perfect. It is approximately 26 Fred, -4 Celsius. I hope everyone's doing well. As the controlled demolition of everything good in this world is destroyed. All right, so let's just go for a walk. I'm going to let this play.
Hello, and welcome to In Pursuit of Clarity, episode number 41, entitled Breaking the Spell. You may have noticed I've been using the word magic more often lately, especially in referencing the means and methods of the master deceivers behind the scenes, and in the recent discussion of the Magi in the Secret History video. We tend to have a strangely narrow and superficial understanding of this word in our age. When most people think of magic, it conjures up images of card tricks, or sleight of hand, or similar illusions. But this is to magic what a modern pop song might be to a Wagnerian opera or a Beethoven symphony. It technically falls under the same label or definition, but it's such a cheap and bastardized version and manifestation of the core concept that in actuality, there's almost no relation between the two. They're worlds apart. And it's important to truly understand this idea because we live in a world dominated by master magicians. Deception and illusions are their trade and their weapons. The fostering and cultivation of delusion and confusion in their enthralled audience is the goal. Yet, at the same time, ensuring this audience never catches wind of just how the trick is done, which would, of course, cause it to lose all of its power. I believe these master magicians are a result and outgrowth of a culture, a product of generations of very different thinking and living, different perspectives and worldviews than the average man on the street. I've spoken in the past about how deeply culture shapes us, even down to the level of genetic expression. For example, a martial nation, perhaps surrounded by foes and completely devoted to the art of self-defense and physical warfare, might not only start to produce slightly larger or stronger men due to its warrior elite being more highly prized in terms of mate selection, but nearly every aspect of how they see themselves and the world around them would also shift accordingly, ideally allowing them to slowly but surely lay the foundation to master the art of war. Similarly, if a subset of sages or holy men were to break off from a larger population, as in the case of the Essenes, for example, after generations of self-discipline and an environment in which men sought to walk with God and be virtuous and just, a child born into this world would develop a completely unique mindset accordingly. These things get passed down to a large extent, even if the original tradition fades and subsequent generations no longer see any pressing need to uphold the doctrine, ideology, or general belief structure of their fathers. Because parents can't help but shape their children in a manner similar to which they were shaped, even if the specifics of these ideas are never discussed between parent to child. The overall orientation of the parent can be intuitively sensed, and is, to some degree, subconsciously pieced together by the child, whose brain is essentially a sponge, desperately seeking all of the information it can find in order to make its way in the world. And to continue using our example of a martial society, a child from a long line of military pilots might unconsciously learn to especially prize or respect courage or adventurousness. Or a child from a long line of military generals might equally prize strategy and planning as positive attributes. A child from a long line of patriarchs might see his people as his flock in the recesses of his brain, and accordingly go on to prize judgment and temperance, knowledge and understanding in order to play some part in helping them, whereas a child from a line of charlatans and televangelists may learn to value oratory, superficial charisma, and perhaps have seeds planted in him that maybe life really is just a rat race in which we all lie to one another, and the best liars are then rewarded with the most comfortable lives. And go on to determine that the best path for him is to learn to lie effectively and with a straight face. And not to digress too far from the point I'm seeking to make, but I spoke of the particular expression of our genes being heavily influenced by the culture in which our ancestors lived. A fascinating example of this concept, still poorly understood by science, is in the studies of twins separated at birth and adopted into different households, growing up apart and never knowing one another. Studies which are frequently brought up and discussed in the ongoing nature versus nurture debates which rage to this day. One would expect these twins to physically develop in a similar manner, of course, and perhaps even have similar IQ. But what was so incredible in the lives of the twins in these studies, who were often set down polar opposite paths with regard to the different environments in which they grew up, was how similar their personality and psychological wiring ended up being, despite this. Very often, they'd have similar occupations, similar tastes across the board, in some cases, an uncanny, almost unbelievable mirror image. This, coupled with the understanding of epigenetics we're just now beginning to formulate, suggests that both nature and nurture are incredibly powerful shaping forces.